Okay, I think we're going to get going. Welcome to Technical Roundtable number 1. This is one of 4 technical roundtables that we're going to do. We're going to do 2 today, and we're going to be do 2 Thursday. This is kind of what we did last year, where we did a bunch of them, and I was actually standing in front of you. And you know, this is in pre-COVID times. This was a popular event. So my name is Drew Zelli. I work for Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. I'm the environmental specialist out of the Appleton office, currently working from my home in Neenah. So I do appreciate you attending. And this, like I said, this is Technical Roundtable 1. And we're going to talk about Streambank and Shoreline and efforts at the county level to install practices. And then we're going to talk about the possible standard revisions and the additional standards that you as technicians and land conservation department staff and NRCS staff may have to follow in the very near future. So we're going to give you an update on where the standards team is in regards to the revision of these standards. Before we get into that, we do have a couple of quick housekeeping notations that we have to take care of. If you have questions, and I'm sure there will be, and please do ask questions, but limit your questions to the chat box. My coworker Kelly Neitzel will be monitoring that chat box, and we will ask these questions after each presentation. Please keep yourself on mute. We do have 111 participants, 112 right now. So we have got a substantial amount of folks, and the number keeps increasing. So if you could keep yourself on mute, that will allow everything to move along smoothly. I will keep track. There are PDHs available for this event. You're going to get an hour and a half worth. So please keep track of that yourself. And that, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Heather Palmquist. Heather Palmquist has been with Iron County Land and Water Conservation Department since 2008. In 2013, she became the county conservationist. She took over the position there, and she also provides the engineering technical assistance program in Iron County. Iron County, since it's up north, as you can well imagine, has a lot of water resources, and it's a priority for their Land and Water Conservation Department. So, Heather, I will turn it over to you. I do appreciate your being here.
Thanks, Drew. You have one hell of a radio speaking voice. And I just got a text from Penny. She has one quick announcement to make, and then I will I'll get going after that. So Penny.
Penny, you're on mute.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Lizway from Calumet County Land and Water Department. I helped nominate this person for Special Recognition Award because of his constant patience and helping staff, the passion he puts into installing practices, and how he is always dependable no matter what time of day, season it is, or whether he's not in a deer stand or not. I can remember when I first started in my position, I didn't know the best techniques to selling anything to landowners, let alone design a waterway. But he was always there to help me. He always backs up the purpose of the practice to the landowner while keeping the landowner confident in me and my abilities, as well as everyone at our county. He has always had the right amount of patience to train new or even experienced employees on subjects, standards, spreadsheets, or even practices until they have a better foundation of understanding. Even today, when I have a question about a project or I'm in need of help, he always tries as much as he possibly can on or off site during construction and is willing, if necessary, to come out to the project site if he is able. Lastly, while he is entering his 20th year with DATCP, he still keeps an open mind about adopting new ideas as long as they make sense, meet standards, and help the overall project.
And I'm Dan O'Connell from Portage County. Good afternoon. This individual serves as a great buffer between federal state bureaucracy and the local grassroots workers to inject practical, real-world knowledge needed to address the issues at hand, which are often very diverse from county to county. He also shows up to work with the same enthusiasm, and we appreciate the style of training as he is always able to teach us something while keeping the mood light. The conservation world has definitely benefited from his career. He has played a key role in Wisconsin Land and Water Conference with his willingness to lead these, as we're all in, very popular technical roundtables. Due to the diversity of topics and attendance, they now require a whole day for these training events. Recently, he started teaching soil conservation at the Fox Valley Technical College, which is a great way to engage youth in the conservation and advance the work of our LCDs. He is a perfect person for this, and he's doing it on top of his normal full work week. Besides training adults, he helps the Outagamie County Land Conservation with their field days at the soil station and previously the quarry station. At the conservation days at Fairview Elementary in O'Connell County, he helps with the O'Connell County Elementary School with the cow pie toss, which I think we'd all like to see, but it's got to be fun for the kids. He goes above and beyond with his customer service and commitment to county LCDs. He is dedicated to keep the county employees trained. He serves on the Northeast Area Training Committee, or ADCOM. He also serves on SITCOM and the PIC, which is the Professional Improvement Committee. All of this is done so that when his career is over, the world of conservation in Wisconsin is in a better place and in the hands of well-trained staff.
Okay, so I don't know if this person's maybe out there someplace figuring out who he is, but I'm going to keep on going with some more tidbits. And if it wasn't mentioned before, it's been said that he works out in the tree stands while he's hunting. So we're just wondering if he ever missed that big one out there while he's been hunting. So this individual has been invaluable during the 2020 statewide interagency training committee assessment process. He's my go-to guy, and I don't know what I would do without him. I'm trying to do two things at once here, and I'm not doing it too well. I know he will, because I know when I call him or text him, or I don't text him, I email him, he's always going to give me a good answer and constructive insight. Even if it's maybe something I don't want to hear, he's going to be honest and tell me what I need to hear. His previous experience and desire to make sure all conservation employees are properly trained has allowed him to play a key role with the revitalization, I can't talk, of SITCOM and the area interagency training committees, or ACOMs as they're called. His career began at the County Land Conservation Department level and has expanded his assistance beyond the Northeast DATCP engineering area he currently serves. So I don't know, have you guessed who our recipient is this year? Any of our presenters, maybe? But it is Drew Zelli. I don't know,
Wow.
Drew, did you figure it out?
You know,
We were talking about you?
No, I
Yay!
didn't. I actually didn't have a clue. Jonathan Lisway, come on. I'm like, oh my God, you got a question for me already? I'm kind of in the middle of something, but I really do appreciate it. I'm actually, you actually kept a pretty good surprise for me. I really did not see this coming. And the reason I say that is I really don't do any more than my job. I just believe, after all these years providing technical assistance to you folks, that you really do conservation in the state of Wisconsin. You're truly what I consider to be boots on the ground. You know, you actively install practices, and I've told many folks that you don't get the credit that you deserve, and I think that the biggest thing for me is and I really mean this, is it's an honor for me to go to your offices, even though I might leave your offices every now and then frustrating. I'm like, what are you thinking you're doing? But I do really consider it an honor to have the privilege to actually go to your offices and be invited to look at your projects. And then, you know what, sometimes you take my advice and sometimes you don't, but you've always given me the ability to give you insight. I'm a huge supporter of Land Conservation Department. I work for Department of Ag, but I really I've spent the last 27 years of my career working in your offices, and for that I am totally indebted. I've been in your, I just really cannot say enough about what you do and simply allowing me to be part of that. So thanks, John. I really appreciate it. And Dan, hey man, I really appreciate it. I don't know what to tell you, Penny.
Okay.
I really do appreciate
I have
it.
some more coming yet. Some more pictures. Okay. So you guys are seeing my slideshow, I'm assuming, right? So,
oh, there you go. God, I'm not wearing glasses.
So there is Drew back in, was that your first job?
No, I worked for Soil Conservation Service before that.
Okay. Okay. So that's Drew when he was in Dodge County. And then we just have a few more current pictures. Nothing too bad. The Condo Stool Field Day at the Cow Pie Toss in 2017. So see, he's doing adult education and youth education. Here's another one from the Outagamie Conservation Field Days in 2017. And I think this is my last one, the Lakeshore Project in 2015. As we all know, we probably don't take a lot of pictures when we're in the field. So it was hard, but this wasn't just us, the three of us that put this together. It was a lot of different people we contacted, but the message was consistent. Whoever we spoke to is like hardworking, gives us good answers, can talk to us at different levels. I don't know. Does anyone maybe we'll let the presenters, if you have something to add quickly, and otherwise we don't want to hold up the presentation. So I had like 10 or 15 minutes, so. Heather or Kelly or anyone?
This is Stacey. I say,
Stacey, there you are.
Hey, I appreciate it.
He's been around longer than I, and he's always been a very helpful go-to person in learning all sorts of stuff. So thank you. Well deserved.
Very well deserved. He was my go-to person when I worked for the county, and he is still my go-to person now that I work for DATCP. Congratulations, Drew.
I appreciate it.
I just hope he outlasts me. So anyhow.
Drew, this is Matt. I just want to say congrats too. I can confirm he has answered the phone for me while in his tree stand. So always going above and beyond for us, Drew. Appreciate it.
Well, and I do believe that because a lot of times you folks will have issues at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and and nobody answers the phone. And so I take that to heart. So I carry my phone with me, and yes, I get the stink eye from my wife every now and then. But your mission is important, and I do everything I can to support that. Okay, are we ready to get back into technical roundtable number 1? Because I am.
Okay, Heather. Awesome, ready to go.
Congratulations, Drew.
I appreciate it.
And I'm gonna tell you, I'm sorry. I'm not a person that believes in lying, but the reason that we had you keep your camera on was purely just for that award. So if you want, you can turn it off now.
All right.
And I apologize for lying to you.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, congrats. All right, so we're going to talk about Streambank and Shoreline protection, and I'm going to just talk about a project that we had done, did the design work back in 2013, and then we implemented the project in 2014 here in Iron County. And just so that once we're going through the presentation, I did this as a practice round yesterday, and my coworker Zach had told me that some of the slides are going to be a little bit hard to see, and you don't necessarily need to see all the data on it. I'll go through it and kind of point out the important stuff, but if you go up to the top of your screen, there's going to be a little view icon, and if you click that and then click on the standard view, it'll help make that presentation just a little bit bigger. So that might be helpful for people out there. Okay. All right, so we're just going to go through a little bit of the project overview. I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the background, some of the tools that we used while designing, and we'll talk a little bit about permitting, and go through how the project fared in the field after a few different project checks throughout the years. And then finally, we'll finish up with some of the new tools that we have available to us now and how those check out with those tools that we used back in 2013. So these property owners purchased this property in the mid-90s, and over the next 15 years, they saw several feet of their property eroding each year on one specific bend on their property. And it's like a 90-degree curve on the river bend, and they are on the outside. And so you can see here that there's quite a bit of erosion, tree roots, and some of the trees are even failing at that point. And so they were really concerned about the erosion on their property, because right up on the top of this river bank is an access road. It's undeveloped, but it leads to throughout the property. And so they were hoping to use that in the future as they developed and maybe built a house out on the point. They were hoping to use this as a driveway. So they were concerned that the integrity of that was in danger. And then they also were both trout fishermen, and they also had a concern for water quality and for fish habitat as well. Okay, so here is the property, and they actually have all 4 of these parcels. So here is the river. This is a border river. So Michigan is on this side up here to the northeast, and we're on the Wisconsin side here, obviously. And so they have just shy, the yellow is their shoreline on this Montreal River. And the problem area that they have is right here on this 90-degree curve. This right here is a railroad grade, an abandoned railroad grade. And then that access point comes from the town road down here. The access road just follows kind of right by this curve and then goes up through to this area. So that'll give you kind of a lay of the land, what we're dealing with here. So a little bit of background on the stream. Again, this is a border river. So Michigan is on the opposite side. Wisconsin is on obviously our side of the river. And there's multiple waterfalls throughout this system. It's also a Class 3 trout stream in this specific section of the river. However, in other parts of that river, it goes up to a Class 2. It's very rocky substrate, as you can kind of see in this picture. Very steep gradient stream. And the average snowfall for this particular area in the county is 170 inches. So we get a lot of snow up here. So we're going to go through some of the design tools, and I'm going to say first and foremost that the biggest design tools that I had for this project was Stacey Dehne, our DATCP engineer that we work with, and then also Paul Johnson, our NRCS technician. So at this point, I was about 6 months to a year in as taking charge on technical designs. So I was pretty green with a lot to learn. And both of these two were very patient and they were met with a lot of questions, blank stares. There were probably a lot of glazed over eyes from time to time throughout this, and a ton of whys. So I would equate doing this project with me, going through the project design as you would have been doing it with a 5-year-old. So throughout the last 9 years, I've also learned that models, when it comes to working with models in Iron County, they don't always work and they're not always accurate. So case in point is this specific project. And so we've always used, in the past, we always used the Purdue University watershed delineation tool. And when we delineated this watershed, it took on not only the Montreal River watershed, which is roughly on this part of the page here in this upper right-hand corner, but it also, for some reason, captured the west branch of the Montreal River. So it effectively more than doubled our watershed square mileage. So it read that it was 190 square miles. And right off the get-go, I was like, that's not right. So Stacey and I tried to use the DNR watershed viewer, which had some limitations as well, because since it's Wisconsin DNR, they did not take into consideration anything on the Michigan side. And again, that's part, so we're missing watershed data over on that Michigan side. But at least it was a little bit more accurate. So that's what we used going forward with our design. So we took a watershed of 47 square miles. Okay, so then we went on to the flood frequency. And the standard at the time only required you to design to a 10-year storm event for cropland, woodland, pastureland, or other lands. And then if you had an access road, you were supposed to design to a 25-year flood event or storm event. But because this wasn't an improved access road, we decided that the 10-year storm event would have been just fine. So when we looked at that with our flood frequency, again, using that 47 square miles right up here, our Q value for a 10-year storm event was 990 CFS. Now, we planned over here on this graph, so we planned on protecting the stream bank to the top of the bank, which was at an elevation of 99. And so once we get up to the top of our stream bank protection at the elevation of 99, oh, I lost my mouse, okay. You can see over on this side of the river, the water rises up and then levels off into the whole floodplain, which is directly connected. So we felt that that was good enough protection, and that we were good with that 10-year flood event. So when we look at the stream, the shear stress, the area of the most concern is going to be your channel bend. That's where right in here on our plan view is where we were experiencing the most severe part of the erosion. And so if you look at this calculated stream bank graph, if you look at our elevation of 99, or the top of the bank, you've got zero amount of shear stress. But then as we get closer to the toe of our bank, and again, this pink line is our channel bend, once we get to a little bit over 95, elevation of 95, that's when we get to basically our highest point of shear stress. So from there all the way down to the channel bed is our greatest amount of shear stress, which is 0.75, still relatively low in the shear stress world. And something else to point out on this slide is the survey. We had about 350 feet of data points. Okay, now when you look at this companion document for shear stress, now we were planning stream barbs for this project. And you'll notice that stream barbs are not listed as a type of treatment for on this document, but we looked at the gravel cobble, and in our plan, we were planning on using D50 6-inch rock. And then we were also looking at adding additional larger boulders that were about 18 inches in diameter. So if you look at the companion document and you look at that gravel and cobble, we've got 6 inches here and 12 inches here. And our shear stress, the allowable pounds per square feet, is 2 and 4. And remember, we're at 0.75. So that fits in right there, and we've got enough protection. Then we also looked at the boulder clusters here. And again, medium rock and small rock fit our range. So the medium rock is less than 20 inches in diameter, and the small rock is less than 10 inches in diameter. And the shear stress that's allowed within this practice is 9.3 and 4.75. So again, we're totally well protected in that. We also looked at our stream type, and I'm not going to go through all of this document, but basically the bottom line is once we classified our stream, our type was a C2 or a C3 stream. The difference between a C2 to a C3 is boulders versus cobble, and we didn't bother going any further in depth with that. We had both of them, and we felt that that was sufficient enough. So now when we go through and we look at the erosion characteristics of the stream bank, and we pay attention to the C2 and the C3 streams here, we can see that the sensitivity to disturbance on these types of streams is low to moderate. The recovery potential is good to very good. The sediment supply is low to moderate, and the stream bank erosion potential is also low to moderate. So in looking at this kind of tells me that we've got a pretty easy stream to work on, and we're probably not going to screw it up too bad. At least I hope not. And then when we look over here at the fish habitat structures, which always kind of intrigues me and I like to focus on as a trout angler, we've got, again, that C2 stream and C3 stream here. And if we go across and look at the stream barbs or the single wing deflectors, both streams fare as a good practice for that kind of a stream type. And so we were looking for something that would be either excellent or good at minimum. Anything below fair or fair was not applicable for us. And so Paul Johnson gave us a hand with developing some nice designs, which are far better than I'd be able to draw by hand since I'm not a CAD person. And so you can kind of see here in our detailed drawing of the different barbs. And basically these are keyed back into your stream bank at about 8 feet. So those go into the stream bank back 8 feet. And they're about 3 feet wide, or basically as big as the excavator bucket that you're working with. Then the stream barbs also go about 20 feet into the stream, or basically halfway across the stream, so that it will deflect the thalweg, which is this light. The current thalweg is the current or the light blue line, and it'll basically deflect them back into the middle of the stream where it should be, which is shown in that dark blue line there. We plan these stream barbs to be about 80 to 100 feet apart, which you can also see in this next drawing. So again, here's our stream flow going this way. And you can see here, we had planned for about 5 different stream barbs. And down here is a scale for about the spacing. All right, so now we're going to go through some permitting, which is probably everybody's favorite part of a project. Oops, excuse me. And so this project required an individual permit, which is real fun to apply for. And so part of the process with that was we had to contact the adjacent landowners, sending them a letter and allowing them a 30-day comment period. And again, it was only the adjacent landowners. We weren't required to do anything across the stream. However, we were a little concerned about the landowner directly across the stream on the inside of that bend, because there was quite a bit of a sand deposit on that inside bend from a sediment piling up throughout the past several years. So we were a little bit concerned that these stream barbs could possibly affect that landowner. However, it was a vacant lot. So it wasn't like there were any structures or anything that was in jeopardy. And then also part of that individual permit process was you also had to place a notice in the paper for the public to provide a 30-day comment period on the project practice as well. And one of the papers that we use here in Iron County is a Michigan paper. So kind of our bases were kind of covered, we felt, with that. Now, some of the conditions of the permit were that the stream barbs could not obstruct navigation. And since they were only going in 20 feet across the river, which was only halfway, you could still canoe or kayak around that without any problem. They also taper down. So at the top of the bank, the rock will meet the top of the bank, but then they taper down into the stream and are underwater on the water side. And then the other thing was the structure could not reduce the flow capacity, and the barb should provide bank protection to move the thalweg back into the center of the stream. And that was exactly what we were trying to accomplish. So no issue there. All right, so on to construction. So we get to construction day, and also part of the condition, because this was a trout stream, is you have to have your work done by September 15th. And we had waited till later in the field season to implement this project to allow for the water levels to kind of come down. And also just due to the contractor availability, which is always kind of a problem for everybody. So we showed up on September 10th and we found that we were completely flooded out and it was not going to happen that day. So we canceled, knowing that it'd probably take, I don't know, a week for this to kind of come down and settle down. And so immediately I went back and contacted our water regs person and our fisheries biologist to try to get an extension. And let me tell you, it is really good to keep your fisheries biologist a close friend or just even on friendly terms. So after contacting them, we were able to get an extension on the project. Okay, oops. So on the day of construction, on the left-hand picture here, we've got Stacey checking the elevations and also making sure that the slopes were correct and as to plan. And then here on the right, we have a completed stream barb. And so it kind of comes out protecting that top of bank. And then you can see it angles here kind of upstream to deflect that current away from that stream bank, protecting the bank from any further erosion. Okay, and now we have a stream barb in action. So if you'll remember, me being the 5-year-old on the design on this, and one of my questions was, well, how do you know if you are going to space this 80 feet apart or 100 feet apart? I was new to these plans and kind of nervous about implementing this in the field. And how do you know? How do you figure that out? And Stacey and Paul had assured me that, you know, you'll just see it in the field. And so if you look at this picture, way up here, you can kind of see a bubble line. And right here, we have our first stream barb. Okay, so then you can see that the bubble line then follows and kind of is diverted away from that bank. And then as soon as it starts coming towards the bank, we have another stream barb right here. And then again, that deflects that bubble line or the flow to this last, or this third, I guess, stream barb right here. And that stream barb, you can see the rock underneath the water right here, protecting that bank and the flow going directly past it. So it was really neat to see these work directly right away. As soon as we would construct one, you could see it immediately taking effect. So kind of a really neat process. So then in the following spring, 2015, we had a pretty intense snowfall that year, and the Montreal was really raging as the snow melted. And so I was pretty nervous about it and ran out there to check out the project and see if the barbs were doing okay, see if they were doing their work. And so on this left-hand picture, you can see that thalweg or that stream right down the middle of the river, which is great. And then here is again where I keep taking that same picture at that one stream barb right on that bend. And you can see again that bubble line or the flow going right down the middle of the stream, not even coming anywhere near near the stream bank. So it did a great job. So here's a little bit of the project cost breakdown, what we were able to cost share on. We also had a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant that helped get that landowner cost down to under $3,000. So something pretty great for them. And then there's a little quote there from the landowner that I just talked to them about 2 weeks ago in preparation for this. I haven't been out to the site myself now in a couple of years. But they're super happy with the project. Everything is still working great. And in this picture here, this was taken right after that big flood event in Iron County in 2016 that took out and did millions of dollars worth of damage to the northern counties. And you can see here's the stream barb. Again, the water is deflected away and into that fellweg. Our stream bank is nice and vegetated. And then right across the stream here is that big sand deposit on the inside corner of that stream on the Michigan side. And it is completely vegetated, doing great. And there's really been no damage at all to that property owner's shoreline. So now looking at the recheck, Stacey and I reran this a few weeks ago now. Just to see what would have changed if we were planning this now. So now we use StreamStats from the USGS, which in my case works a lot better because it works across the state lines. And so it grabbed all of that data from over on the Michigan side and then effectively ended up doubling our watershed size. So we're up to about 82 square miles of a watershed versus what we designed at, which was 47 square miles. We also have a new flood frequency. So when we tried that out and we used our new watershed size of 82 square miles, our new Q value for a 10-year flood would be 2068 CFS. So it a little more than doubled our Q value or our CFS that we would have to design for. But again, we felt pretty confident. Number one, it stood up to the test of time so far. And then also remember, once we reach that top of the bank, it's got the entire floodplain right there to just kind of absorb that water and spread out because it's all natural and well connected. All right, and that is all I have for you. And thanks for your time. And if you do have questions, I'll do my best. Otherwise, Stacey is the real brains behind these designs. Thank you.
Kelly, do we have any questions?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat so far, but I do have a question.
Good, because I do too.
Oh, good.
You go first.
I don't know if you'll have an answer for it, but I'm going to ask anyway. Other than staying on good terms with your DNR contact, was there anything else that helped you get an extension for this project when you were looking at those dates for the...
Yeah, I'm going to guess that it also likely had a lot to do with this being a class 3 versus a class 1 trout stream. If this would have been, high populations of brook trout and a real sensitive stream or highly erodible, then I think we would have had more problems with getting an extension. But this, I just talked with a stream biologist, and they did a shocking survey not far from this site. And there's trout in there. There's some brook trout and one brown trout that was caught, but it's not like, one of the Southwest streams where there's thousands in a mile. We're talking about, a handful here and there. So I'm assuming that definitely had some part to play in it. But it doesn't hurt to be on friendly terms.
That's always my first advice when working with counties.
Right.
Drew, do you have a question? I don't have anything else in the chat yet either.
Well, yeah, I do. And first of all, Heather, I really do appreciate the fact that you shared us with us. I think those barbs are super cool practices, and it gets you away from that full bank riprap where which was kind of a traditional thing for us in the past. So I do really have like 3 questions. I'm all about computations of those of you that work with me, and when I go through the design, you can do your construction plan in crayon, and I always say do it in crayon, I don't care. But if your math is right and your construction computations are accurate, then you've definitely proved that what you're planning on doing is going to work. And I really was impressed with your computations and how you went through the thought process. Do you think that was worthwhile, or were there some shortcuts that you could have considered? I'm just asking your opinion.
Well, I think that I'm sure there's shortcuts that you can take, but that's where Stacey comes in, I think, and wants to make sure that the numbers are supporting our designs and making sure that they're going to stand up. And then I think a lot of times when the 2 of us are working on a design, I still to this day ask a million questions, and I'm probably pretty darn annoying. But I guess I'm curious, and sometimes she won't know the answer, or she might say, well, let's just check it out. So then we'll go find another tool that we can use just to make sure that, this is the right practice, or that, the flood, a big storm event is going to stand up to that practice or that amount. So I think, sure, you probably could take some.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we
shortcuts, but I don't know. I ask a lot of questions. I'm
I'm kind of big that way too. I'm really into proving what your thought process, especially on stream banks. I think they're difficult projects and need a lot of thought through. The follow-up question I have for you, and I've done barbs myself and I've done it with several counties that I work in Northeast Wisconsin. How much from the construction plan did you have to deviate in the field? We have found that, we'll get that first barb in, and then we watch that thalweg change. And then we're like, maybe we got to adjust this, or maybe we got to adjust that. Was there a lot of on-site adjustments for their barbs, or they did pretty much go in as planned?
Boy, I have a terrible memory and can hardly remember if I took my vitamins every morning. And so Stacey might have some insight with this, but from what I remember, no, we didn't really have to deviate too much. There may have been some spaces where you might not have reached your full 80 feet. I don't remember what they actually, how far they actually were apart. I'd have to look at the as-built survey. But I think that really would have been the only thing that deviated too awfully much on this project.
Okay. Well, and I think that's a fair thing to say. And my final question, and I like to do this especially after the fact, what would I have done differently? Is there anything that you would have done differently, or what was your biggest struggle on this project that you can remember? Was it the design procedure? Was it the permits? Was it construction? Was it getting the landowners to say, hey, what a great idea, you're the best technician ever? Those types of things.
I don't remember this being all that hard. In an individual permit, you have to jump through a few extra hoops. But everything came together pretty well. Again, I think part of that process, like with the individual permit, was by working with that fisheries biologist. And we just had a case where we're lucky. We work a lot. We work pretty closely with our fisheries biologist and some of our other local DNR folks. And so getting him involved early on in the project, and then the water regs person on early on in the project. So by the time they actually got the permit, they knew a little bit of the background behind the project and could weigh in on it. And by, again, having that fisheries biologist in the loop, he could kind of advocate for that project or sign off on it quickly with that water regs person. But that doesn't always work. I've worked on projects where you've got a general permit and they don't want us to do that kind of work, even though you do go to them ahead of time and talk with them about it. So it doesn't always work, but I think it can be pretty beneficial in the process.
Okay. Well, those are my questions. Kelly, I saw something pop up.
Yep, we got a few of them actually.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with Kurt. How did you, oh goodness, things are moving because there's more comments coming in. Hold on. How did you determine the upstream angle of the stream barb on the design? And during construction, did the contractor install the barb at the design angle, or was the angle changed slightly because of the stream characteristics?
I think from my memory, they did change. So the ones on the barbs on the actual bend where where the erosion was the most severe. So let me just go back and show you. Okay, I did this one. So these barbs up here, these first two, I don't remember them being at as severe of an angle. Once you got down here, this third barb had a quite severe angle. And that's the one that I kept standing on and taking all the pictures, and you could really see that it was really angled towards, in a way, almost towards this stream bank here. Because it all depended on how, once this barb was working and in place, where that fellway was going. And so then, yes, you did kind of deviate, I guess, from your plan. See, memory triggered. And then once you got to this one, we would say, yes, this needs to be angled up more this way towards the upstream to catch that fellway and put it back into the middle of the stream where it belongs. So definitely this one and this one were way more angled than these first two. And I think even more so than this last one.
All right. I got a couple more questions. Adam D is asking, is the railway active? And if so, how was your interaction with those responsible for railroad maintenance?
Nope, it wasn't active. So that was kind of, that made it easier for us. We didn't have to have any interaction.
That's a big one. That and my experience with railroads is, you know, they're next to God. They're hard to, they dominate everything.
Kurt had a comment, I'm pretty sure related to that here. I have a stream bank protection site which borders DOT railroad, and I have been in contact with the representative with the railroad. So far, no issues. So then I got Scott Miller wants to make a point on the stream bank spreadsheet. If you could show the spreadsheet slide for him. And then I'm assuming he'll unmute himself and point something out to us.
The stream bank?
This is Stacey. Don't steal my thunder, because we're going to look at that probably when I get into my talk on the spreadsheet.
I won't try to steal your thunder. I think it's up a little bit more, Heather.
That
it was
one.
The plot of the cross-section plot.
This one here.
Nope. That one. Nope.
Yeah, that's it.
One more. That one. So in the lower right corner, the cross-section plot that you see there, notice how the magenta line is out there at elevate or at station 190. Everybody, and I'm not talking just this project, but everybody, when you're using the spreadsheet, we've improved it a little bit to give you some warnings about this. But at the end of the cross section, that last point needs to be higher than the previous point, so the math works out well. It gets down into the hydraulic radius and the wetted perimeter and the math in the spreadsheet itself. So be very careful that the water surface that you have ends up inside the channel and it makes sense. So look at those plots, and when they're right, you'll see it. When they're wrong, and extending outside the channel, like this one, you'll see a difference. So just keep that in mind as you're using the spreadsheet. Thank you, Heather, and I apologize for picking on you.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll take that as picking on me, Scott. And yep, that's a new error message in the spreadsheet. And I was gonna point that out in my talk because in the updated, you do get the error message number 7.
Yeah.
So I'll try to show that.
And I'm sorry to use two, Stacy.
How are we doing, Kelly?
Hi, that is everything I have in the chat box.
Okay,
All
and
right.
if you have more questions, save them, and we will circle back again at the end of this presentation. If all of a sudden something pops up and you say, oh, I wish I would have asked Heather this, we will have opportunity to do that. So, okay, our
Thanks.
next presenter will be Stacey Dehne. I've worked with Stacey Dehne. Am I still on? Yes. And Stacey, I've worked with Stacey Dehne for years, and she is the DATCP engineer from the northern area, and she's heavily involved in the 580 team revision, the standard revision team. She's known as the voice of reason. So, Stacey, without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Is anybody able to see it yet? Oh, don't tell me I went away right when I needed to be talking.
It's coming. It's there
Okay.
small.
Yeah.
It says I'm screen sharing. I just don't see my PowerPoint yet.
We're seeing your Zoom, Stacy.
Okay, let's try. Is that any better?
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Hey, all right. Okay, so thank you, Heather.
You're lagging a little bit, Stacey. Talk slow.
Or maybe we don't have Stacy have her webcam on. Maybe that'll help.
Right. Let's see if I can figure out how that I'm not. Oh, there. Hey, how's
I'm going to
great? I get a
remove your spotlight and take you off.
Oh, now, shall I continue?
Sounded a little
Hello?
better.
Yeah, it's sounding better, Stacey. I think you should try it with your camera off.
Okay, my camera is off.
I think there we go.
Okay, so thank you. I'm here to talk about the standards updates we're working on and some lessons learned. And I would argue that we're continually learning together as we work on these projects with different versus each project. So the project, the standards that we're working on with the standards oversight committee.
Did we lose Stacy?
Yeah.
I think so.
At least we're all here. So that's probably
Okay.
better than losing the connection. So that's good, I guess, right? We could have lost
Yeah.
150 people. So
Although we do want to hear Stacy.
right.
Right.
I'm
You know
sending
what?
her a text real quick.
Yeah, we'll do a real quick pause. And let's just take a break in place for 5 or 10 minutes where we work out our COVID-19 technical issues.
Hey, Drew, why don't you describe how we did what were you just talking about there in that last presentation, the stream barbs on the cake pot there, where we actually threw the leaf in the water to watch where the thaw wig would go.
I could, Wes, but you know what? It is a land conservation department conference, so it might come better, sound better coming from you. I'm trying to teams Stacey right now, so.
She's not on Teams from what I could tell.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, she's back on here though.
There we go.
Stacey, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk to us. Well, I thought I saw Stacey.
I think you did, and I don't think she was muted.
Oh, she looked like she wasn't mine, but maybe it was
Oh.
a delayed thing.
I don't know that she ever disappeared on my listing. Was she gone?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
There you go.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Oh my God, I can't even believe it. I've been listening all day long and now when I have to use it, it's kicking me out.
The good news is you sound pretty good right now.
Oh my gosh, I better go. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not
No.
yet.
Stay on, can you see?
Not yet. And your voice is going out again. I'm wondering if we need to try doing this with somebody else sharing your presentation.
That sounds all right.
Did anybody have your actual PowerPoint or do we just have the
I
PDF
have it.
version?
Yeah,
is
Kenny,
Penny.
Penny should have it.
Yep,
Okay.
so Stacy's part 1, right? I'll- Yeah, I'm getting it ready. Just hold on. I'm trying to find. If I lose some of my. We're getting there, guys. Here it comes. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, which slide are you on, Stacy? Can you see it?
All right, so Stacy and I are gonna what we call we're gonna do this like what a technician would do, and we're gonna figure out how to do this. So Stacy's gonna actually talk via her iPhone into my speaker, and hopefully this will work for you. So hang on 1 second, and I will turn it over to Stacy. All right, Stacy, it's all you.
Okay, so is Penny gonna put my PowerPoint on?
They are up, and they are the first one.
It's hard to hear her.
It's probably easier to hear me than when I'm disconnecting all the time.
So.
Okay,
Let me try. Can you guys see me on right now? Penny, are you in my PowerPoint?
Much better.
I hung up on you, Drew. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
PowerPoint.
So are we using her PowerPoint
And
or
I
mine?
apologize. Oh,
Whose PowerPoint? Am I running it or is Stacy running it?
I think you're running it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stacy. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can she just call in on the number? How was she trying to connect? Was she trying to come in through the computer or through the phone?
She called me on the phone. So
Could she just call in on the phone? Scott Miller's out there. He knows how that works, I think. And I think she can just, but she probably has to still see it. She comes in through on the mic and then she's
okay, Stacy.
switched to phone audio. Maybe we could try that.
Yeah, do you have a calling number for the Zoom?
I'm not seeing that you handed it, that anybody gave it to us.
No,
Penny.
they didn't give those out. And supposedly what we were supposed to do is people are supposed to come on the mic. You go on there and it gives you a number or something.
Okay, so you know what? I've got Stacy on the phone right here, and I will tell her what slide you're on. So Stacy, go ahead and say something. Can you hear her? Can you hear her? Penny, can you hear her?
Not really.
I don't know what to try. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, trying to get, this is not working here. Try
A
it
little
again.
louder that time.
Yeah, try it again, Stacy.
Try just talking on the phone, you mean?
Yeah.
I hear that.
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy.
Oh my God.
We're gonna do this. This is what technicians would do.
Okay. PowerPoint, first one. We're working on updating 4 standards. 580, 582, 584, and 595. Can you hear me?
Barely. Kelly, Heather, anybody?
I can hear. It's not the best, but I can hear.
Do I get back into Zoom or try this?
Drew, hold that phone as close to your mic as you can, and let's keep trying this.
Okay, hang on one second. We're gonna.
Yep, we're getting messages on the chat saying we can barely hear her.
Is she on?
Go ahead and talk, Stacy.
Okay, I'm talking.
Not any better.
PowerPoint.
Yes.
If talking about the standards oversight team. And I've listed the folks on the team. I know there's quite a few of them that might be on this call. And if you advance to the next slide, there's an estimated timeline of hopefully getting some of these standards out for initial review. Looking at maybe a timeline of April 2021. And then getting it out to broad review a couple months after that. I think what that means to us is that we may not have these standards updated and out there in time for the upcoming construction season. How am I doing, Drew?
How's she doing, Kelly? Because I can hear you fine, but I'm on the phone with you.
She's still really quiet. There's some call numbers in the chat. I don't know if we can ever try that.
Okay. I don't have any call numbers.
They're in the chat, and I'm trying to figure out if I can I'll email them maybe. I don't know where these came from, but thank you, Mitchell.
Yeah, supposedly they're in the, I think mine is different because I'm the host.
Man, this is really tough.
They're in the,
If you guys
So
can
you want
hear-
us to try these call numbers?
I'm gonna email them to Stacy right now.
Okay. We're gonna send you call numbers.
Oh, good.
All right. Well, while we're waiting, I do apologize for this. This is, kind of what we were worried about when this whole thing started, that we were going to have some type of some technology issues, and that's just what happens in the environment that we're here. So what you could do is, if you could take a break in place, and we will come back and either make this happen by 2:15, or we're going to be done early by 2:15. So go ahead and take a break in place as we work out our technical issues. I do appreciate your patience. Scott, are you still out there by any chance?
what do you want from Scott? I can text him.
Well, I think if this all fails with him, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Scott to ad lib this like we would do on a technician meeting. And then I think other members of that 580 team are out there too. So I'm going to, phone a friend that might be Scott Miller and see if we can limp our way through this.
Okay, I'm just gonna call him and ask him.
Okay, that sounds good.
Hello, this is Stacy calling in. Is that any better?
Holy cow, you actually
That's
sound
great.
normal. Holy
Wonderful.
cow.
Oh my gosh, who's gonna advance slides for me?
Well, I put everybody on break while you were doing that. So we do have a little bit until everybody comes back. And Kelly, if you can monitor the chat room to see if people come back, I put them on a little pause.
Penny has your slides up,
So-
Stacy.
Is
I'll
it
do the
Penny that
slides.
has my PowerPoint?
Yep.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
I'm on-
Holy cow, now if I gotta try to get through this.
Do you have a copy of it?
A copy of what?
The PowerPoint?
Well, yeah, but
mean, so you
think
know
I would
which-
just tell you to advance.
As long as you know which
I'm
slide.
just gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna tell you to advance, right?
Okay, as
Like
long as you
next
know
slide,
when
next
the slides
slide.
advance. Yep. So which one do you
Yeah,
want me to
'cause
be
I can
on?
see it,
You can see it?
one above that. Yeah, I joined back in without audio or
Okay.
camera, so maybe I'll be able to stay. So go back towards that one right there. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh my God, what a disaster. I can't even believe it.
It's COVID. That's your excuse. Next year we'll be in person.
I can believe it. That's the North Woods and in internet service. That's exactly why I'm at my office, but Stacy
I
doesn't
should have
have
come to
that
your
luxury.
office, Heather.
That's what I just
should've
told
come to your
Trav.
office. Dang it. And so much for thinking my Cradle Point was better, that when this new internet thing, but man, it's not right now.
All right. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and we will get
Oh my
through this.
God.
Like I said, they're on break right now, and we'll start up in about 5 minutes. So don't touch anything, Stacy.
I knew that spreadsheet was going to come up too. That's funny, Heather. Oh, hey, sounds great, somebody says. Are they talking?
I think so.
Woo.
So does anyone know where the telephone numbers, did they come through the microphone? Is that where people found the telephone numbers at? So that I can share that with the rest of my team.
I
If
say
this
I still
happens,
haven't found them.
Who found it?
Mitchell McCarthy sent
Penny,
them in chat.
Penny, I can tell you, when I clicked on my microphone, there's
Yep.
an arrow.
Yep,
And
yep.
there's a option there to switch
Right.
to phone audio,
Yep.
and that's where the numbers were.
Okay, that's what I thought. But mine don't show for some reason. But I think it's maybe because I shouldn't be switching. But yeah, that's where it's supposed to be. Okay. And I did try calling you, Scott, but you didn't answer my call, but we don't need you anymore. We may need you, so don't leave.
Yeah, Scott, we phoned a friend. You were the backup plan, and you didn't know it.
We thought you were a friend.
Anytime.
Now, Stacy, we are pushing time a little bit. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, I might skip a few places.
yeah,
I'll just tell you to advance.
yeah, we'll start up again at 2:10, and that would be the time to speed talk.
Drink a little more coffee.
Yep.
Or that's
Ugh.
what I do.
Yep.
Well, at least I'm not making it up when I say that my computer internet connection is not the best. Honestly.
I know DATCP should be more supportive.
Well, I got that new thing, but it
Okay.
clearly isn't that fabulous. but very nice chats. Thank you, people, for being supportive. Stressing me out about technology. I'd rather be in front of everyone in a room right now.
Don't we all? We'd like to be
Okay.
having beverages at 4:30 today, but maybe next year, especially in the Dells.
Well, I'm sure glad we told Heather to go first. I'll say that. That was beneficial.
Okay, it's 2:10. I think we have our issues rectified, at least at the present moment. So Stacey, again, Stacey is the
Okay.
DATCP engineer from the north. As you know, up north has limited internet connections. So I will turn it over to her for the time being, and hopefully we'll get through it. All right, Stacey.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. How very stressful. So the PowerPoint, the slide up right now is showing you some of the team members that I'm on with. We started about last April, so we're going about a year's time here. Next slide, Penny. So when you're thinking about working on a project, I think a lot of the planning references, in my opinion, are right at your fingertips when you can go into the companion documents. And the current Wisconsin 580 standard has a ton of companion documents in Chapter 16. You can find a management assessment that kind of takes you through how the landowner is currently using their property and their riparian corridor. And then you can do a site assessment, also very easily with a checklist. Next slide. There it comes. And this is just showing you what the management assessment looks like. It's companion document number 2. Again, you can find this at the bottom of the engineering page in NRCS under Engineering Field Handbook, Chapter 16. And there's about 15 companion documents that you can link into in that location. Next slide is going to show the checklist for stream site assessment. And just, you know, there's a ton of things on here, and I'm not even suggesting that you have to fill in every box absolutely verbatim or perfectly, but it at least gets you thinking about the kinds of things that you need to look at when you're out in the field and looking at whether or not you're going to be working on a stream project and what you might be doing in that stream. Next slide. Ooh, slow advancing. Okay, another place to find some helpful documents for planning tools that was relatively new to me, actually. When we go into the ePhotog, and we tend to go right into section 4 for engineering and to get into the practice standards as well as specifications. Well, come to find out, there's a section 3 that's been pretty bolstered, I don't know, in the recent years or months here. And you can look for planning tools in section 3. And I just highlighted in yellow on the slide that there are engineering planning tools as well as habitat suitability indices. And on the right, I just pulled out, when you click on the engineering planning tool, you'll get these choices for farmstead field soil borings. And the last one encompasses some stream and lake planning tools. Next slide. It's advancing really slow for me.
I'm hitting them right as you
But
say them, so it just takes that long, I guess.
Okay. So here's in the engineering portion, one of the tools is called Streambank erosion. And you can literally go through and come up with a, next slide, Penny, come up with a procedure to determine the erosion potential that you might have at your site. So I'm not gonna, you can't read this on the slide, but I just want you to know this tool is out there and available for you. Feel free to read it on your own. What you see on the left now is literally a equation that you can run through, and the biggest, I guess, concern, or you want to get right, the lateral recession rate in that equation. And this gives you some ideas as to how to estimate that or literally measure it in the field if you have.
Did we lose her?
I'm wondering the same thing. I can't hear her either, Penny.
Okay, then I don't hear her anymore.
I didn't want to say anything if somebody else could hear her. But no, I can't hear her either. See if I can text her. I wonder if she can even tell that she dropped the call.
That's what I'm trying to do too.
All right, I'll let you do it, Drew. She doesn't need all of us texting her. We were doing so good too.
Right.
Yeah, there must be quite a drag because I advance, it goes right away, but maybe not on her end or.
I'm seeing them quicker than what it sounds like she is too, Penny.
Okay, so it must be all of her issues there.
Scott, I know you're out there and I know you're really good at ad-libbing and and I know you've been on this team because I've done technician meetings with you before.
Oh my goodness.
There you are,
Hello.
Stacey. Holy cow.
I know, right? Now my phone doesn't like me. Go ahead to the next slide. I'm ready. This one, we talked about one of the 4 standards being the Habitat 95 standard. And this is not in the engineering, but if you remember the yellow highlighted earlier, there's a habitat section as well. And you can also use this tool to look at habitat, looking at installing improve habitat in your stream. Next slide. So one of the things that you're looking at is existing or planned features. Next slide, Penny. And here are some of the features that you might consider highlighted in yellow. Logs or large woody debris, deep pools, secondary pools, overhanging vegetation, large boulders. Again, maybe if you're not familiar with looking at the planning tools that you might utilize when you're planning a project for stream protection or restoration or habitat improvement. Next slide. So think about looking at projects, just this photo I just shared. Think about this one, and to me, if I go out in the field and I see this, I may not be doing any kind of stream bank protection whatsoever. All I might need to do is fencing, and that might very well solve the problem. Next slide. Here's another one. This happens to be a project that was eroding literally downstream of a dam. You can see the dam in the upper left photo. What it looks like on the stream bank just downstream of it on the bottom right photo. And again, kind of common sense, telling yourself, okay, this is a little bit more intense situation, a little bit more intense flows. You have some impingement velocities. You might need to worry about scour. This is not just a very simple design for protection. You need to kind of delve into deeper discussions on engineering and scour and making sure that a project that you're going to put out in this location is bolstered and take care of the field. Next slide. Another one, this one clearly just denuded of vegetation. Perhaps you would do some toe erosion or toe protection down here. But maybe the majority of your project could consist of restoring that vegetation and getting something to hold in that bank. Next slide. Another one, think about, okay, here's literally someone's backyard and the proximity to the bridge you see in the bottom right photo. That is literally, right next to the project that you might be working on. In addition to being in someone's backyard, in addition to perhaps having some ice flow conditions in Wisconsin winters, and you also have a bridge. So again, should be putting up some red flags for anyone planning and thinking about what other more than typical things you might need to be investigating and understanding before you work on a project in this location. Next slide. Last photo that I got thrown in here, think about okay, putting some toe protection at the bottom of the slope, do you think that that's really going to do it? And clearly, I hope no one is thinking that we're going to put rock all the way to the top of the slope. So these start getting a little more complex, and you have to start thinking about your soil conditions and the stability of your slope on such a steep failing location. Just putting rock protection at the toe of the slope is probably not going to cut it. Your slope could just continue to fail over the toe protection. So again, things to think about, or what you might run into in the field that makes you say, okay, I better make sure that I'm getting this right, and looking into the good planning tools and design information. Next slide. So there's a million tools out there. I just list a few here. And next slide, you think about all the online tools, whether it's from NRCS or some private web pages or Army Corps. NRCS themselves have two very large handbooks for stream corridor restoration, that's 653, or the Stream Restoration Design Handbook, 654. I mean, literally, you could spend days going through and looking into all of this information that is available to us. What we really have to understand is when we should be delving into what types of planning tools and design tools. So just know that this is out there. Next slide, please. In addition to the 654 very large binder, these are technical supplements, and I just wanted to show, again, it's probably not the best text, but one of the ones I want to talk about is the scour calculation, the technical supplement 14B, and some on bioengineering. So there's a lot of information out there, and if you're working on a stream bank project, I would expect that you would want to be consulting with these documents and getting the best information that you can for what you're working on. Slide. Showing you there are a ton of chapters and handbooks out there to help you in your design processes. And it really is about planning and coming up with the ideas, and then trying to figure out what is appropriate for the location that you're working on. And then you compound that with thinking about what standard is appropriate. So the 580 standard has been our go-to standard in the past. And what the team is now trying to do is incorporate open channel, the 582, or the bed stabilization, 584, and even the habitat, and kind of make them a host of tools that we use. And if we're going to be dealing with changing plan form or bends and really manipulating a lot more of the stream than just a small little area, we want to be looking at the open channel standard as well. If we're going to be putting grade control structures in, we want to be looking at the bed stabilization standard as well. So trying to bring in these different tools and ideas in the complexity of our design projects. Next slide, please. Another tool we use a lot is the bank erosion, the permit process. And again, just to point out, like Heather's project in Iron County, the northern part of the state, we don't get general permits for streams. All of them require individual permitting. So we tend to go through the individual, and we have our partners at DNR also evaluating and reviewing the work that we've done to make sure that it's appropriate for the stream. Next slide. Here's just what the bank erosion potential index looks like. It's a worksheet, kind of again gets at the soil type, the slopes, vegetation. It's just another tool to evaluate what your bank looks like. Next slide. And then in the permitting aspect, it goes into talking about needing a BPI score of at least 20, I believe, if the slide were to come up. Okay, BPI score of 20. They actually have some measurements as well that you can do in the field for looking at the lateral recession change in the bank. Again, if you have time or difficult time finding the ability to measure this truly over months or 6 months or working on projects, but over 3 month period, the lateral recession rate, killer permitting aspects. The total project length, now 500 linear feet of stream bank in a quarter mile. Just our team has definitely decided that this would be a good change as far as referring to the same as DNR for 500 linear feet of shoreline. That if you're exceeding 500, you have to do a little bit more evaluation and assessment, and it may impact your design requirements in the future. Next slide. Oh, it feels forever changing. Okay, next slide. That's just talking again about permits, and my point being that we have partners in the regulatory agencies that can be an interdisciplinary and streams and understanding what we should and more importantly should not be doing to the streams. I think I said next slide. Again, next slide. Utilities are important. You don't want to be getting out there right before construction when you decide to mark utilities and discover that there's something in your project. Actually talked about utilities, you know, initially when you're planning, or if you have some concerns that they're out in your area, that you should locate them right away so they don't cause trouble down the road. Suggested survey points for stream bank restoration. This slide, I just took this out of the engineering field handbook. It kind of shows, you know, places where you should be surveying in the field. Bank full, of course, so we talk about a lot. That's a very critical location to get the water surface at bank full. We want to look at floodplain benches. We want to look at any kind of seeps or something going on in our steep slopes. Next slide. So here's another schematic, happens to be out of 580.8, the 8th companion document, and you can see that we look for the bank full width, we look for the bank full depth, we look for 2 times the maximum depth in order to get a flood prone width. So these are things that you want to be thinking about when you're doing a survey, that you are gathering the appropriate data so you can go through some of the geomorphological parameters or designs and come up with what you might need to know in deciding what types of protections or restoration techniques you might be utilizing. So if you don't have these data points, that's not going to get you there. Another document I wanted to share, just kind of showing you, here's our flow direction coming through these bends. Just last week, I think, Scott Miller had done the webinar on the new stream bank protection spreadsheet, and thinking about, you know, sometimes if we're working on a bend, we used to do a cross section right in our area of the bend, and to make sure that now instead we're doing it at the crossover so that at least you have a cross-sectional area or a cross-sectional data for something in the crossover when you're going through the bends from one bend to the next. Next slide, please. Okay, Penny, I'm going to have you go through probably about 5 slides because I want to save time. So while she's going through the slides, think about scour is one thing that we want to start considering, and one of those technical supplements I mentioned earlier can give you some good guidelines. Keep going on slides, Penny. I'll tell you when to stop. So historically, we haven't done a lot, at least I haven't done a lot of calculations per se with scour. Okay, Penny, stop. But we do have existing standard drawings that really do kind of get at scour. However, if you look at a standard drawing like this one up on the screen now, you have anticipated bottom scour shown, and we have like a 2-foot pretty regularly or routinely in these drawings. 3 slides go through rather quickly. These are just showing the different standard drawings currently available with the different toe types. So that was getting at scour initially. Good. Stop at this one quickly. So in addition to those standard drawings with the tow types, here's some additional standard drawings in the miscellaneous category. And go on, Penny, to the next slide. So I picked out one cross-channel rock weir, for example, and I just want to show you that there are key depths or key way. Next slide. Is it coming up? I think I'm still on. Is the slide advancing?
You're still on, Stacey, and we have to wrap it up very shortly. We have Tech 2 starting in 15 minutes.
I have it on
Okay,
the rock
let's go.
size.
Yeah.
That's okay. Go all the way to the bottom and we'll give you the CEUs, right? We want to make sure we have that. I am so sorry that this didn't go as planned. I think that you can feel free to reach out to any team member to talk about some of the changes that are being proposed. Feel free to reach out to me. And I listed some of the other team members on there. I was going to kind of get into the spreadsheet, but I don't have time for that. And I'm trying to think what else was in my, the shear stress was definitely part of my slideshow too. And how some of the job approvals have changed, or there's been some added categories. Wow, I'm really sorry.
Where's the CEU?
At the very end of the presentation, there's the scan for CEUs.
It doesn't
Did
come
it
up.
maybe not make into Penny's copy?
Yeah, must not have. So people, if you want a copy of Stacey's PowerPoint, I can get that to you. This is Penny at Wisconsin Land and Water. And why don't you either email me or put it through the chat if you want CEUs, and I'll look for it and we'll get it up maybe by the next session so people can scan it then. And we'll get that up in between here with everything else that I'm supposed to get up. Does that sound like a plan, guys? Ladies?
So yeah, that sounds great. And I do apologize for technical difficulties. Things happen. So Stacey, virtual clap for you. Awesome job, awesome recovery. I really appreciate your efforts, especially as the hurdles were placed in front of you, you still stepped over them. So back to this 580, and Scott, feel free to chime in on this. There is going to be further training. There will be further discussion. There'll be further opportunities. So there's going to be opportunities for you to ask questions, as this progresses. Okay, Kelly, I don't really have time for questions because we have to jump to the next technical roundtable. But I'm going to close now, and I do appreciate your time and I do appreciate your patience throughout this technical roundtable 1 and your.
We're same link, so
yeah.
don't leave.
Yeah.
Okay,
So for the next
same
tech roundtable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay here.
So, all right.
You're not going anywhere.
Okay, that's good to know because I would have exited out. All right, that concludes technical roundtable number 1. We're going to take a deep breath and a long pause, and then we will go into 2 after this. Stacey, I think you're done for the day.
Good luck to the next people. My goodness, I am really sorry that not as I intended.
But not your